key, innovating the process, can't you see? With the platform so smooth, keeps the workflow tight, efficiency and value, that's every single night. Risk profiles, they got 'em, man, it's no joke. North America's the stage and they never choke. Metrics on point, updated without fail. Chameleon carriers, they're on the trail. Don't play with unsafe companies, don't be that guy. eCarrierChecks, keeping it safe under the sky. 40 plus filters with the search that can drive carrier information in the FMCSA archive. Find your carrier with precision and needs. Location, equipment feeds. They got the keys. FTL shipper leads. They're right there for you. Real-time authorities, what they do. Crazy, breezy, ultimates. The dashboards, way freedom from low boards. They got it every day. eCarrierCheck's the architect leading the way.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the eCarrierCheck show. Excited to be on today. Excited to talk about what we're talking about today. And we're talking about carriers, everything carriers, and how to help them negotiate these next few months. And honestly, Nate, I think this is probably one of the more important subjects to really challenge status quo and to help them elevate. You know, the way they're thinking, the questions they're asking. And I'm excited to hammer out this subject with you today.
Yeah, me too, honestly. You know, the hardest thing is looking into the future and just trying to picture where your life's going to be at, right? It's super hard to just know where you're going to be at. But if you can at least start now to prepare for what might come or could be, you know, it doesn't hurt.
No.
And you're just going to, I think in my point of view, it's like you're just going to give yourself more knowledge and just make yourself better.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited.
I think the week has been an interesting week. You know, I've done calls, I've done emails. You know, you're starting to hear some of those, you know, let's talk after the first of the year sort of objections. I've heard those. I even heard somebody say, let's talk after the election.
Okay.
And I thought that was an interesting just little aspect. Like what is it about the election that you don't want to have a conversation right now?
Yeah.
Is the election driving that much anxiety in America?
That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you have just paralyzed decision making or conversations for 3 more weeks.
You'd be surprised. I mean, I've met some people that are just crazy about this, and I get it. It's their country, right? But yeah, I can see where it just can ruin some lives and just your work, your business. And
oh my God!
Talk to me after. I just can't deal with it.
It's wild, man. Like it blows my mind that you know we can't. Yes, we can control it. We can go out. We can vote. We be a part of being a part of America, right? We get that opportunity as a country, which is awesome, right? But really, at the end of the day, we can't control the overall aspect. We can control what we got. Chief Freight Hauler, what's up, brother? It's good to see you on. It is good to see you on. Where are you at, man? Did you get those trees cut in and you're out grinding again? We're talking about you today too, man. So I'm excited. Come on, I needed to know. DIY, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
What is going on? It's good to see you guys. I love the community. I hope the week has been good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to challenge you here, Adam. We've got some interesting things to talk about. Jerome Jones, what's up, brother? Probably no inspections. You know, it's so funny is I think he hit me up. I think I still owe you a name. He hit me up the other day. And he said, hey, who's that carrier that doesn't use load boards that just needs good carriers? And I need to get that info over to him. So hit me up again.
That's what I'm talking
you know, what's all's take on this new freight guard issue? Woo, man, this mic is hot right now. I mean, you know, I gotta say, you know, and we don't really talk bad about our competition. I gotta say though, holy buckets. This is a hot topic. You know, FMCSA came out and said, hey, you can't do these things. You know, I had an interesting conversation with our programmers. I may see if we can pull them in on the show and actually do an entire show on this, because I would love to have the 4 of them. We do a quick roundtable, little town hall, if you will, and talk about this, because this is an interesting subject. I'm not going to really get into too much detail, but here's what I do think is there is a lot of spam out there right now. And I'll say it, 411 sucks. There's a lot of spam out there. There's a lot of fake reviews out there. There's a lot of things. It needs to be controlled, and the process needs to be way better, way more controlled, because everything is so heightened, right? And so I think that's something that, you know, we've got to have a handle on it. I'd be interested to know what DIY's comments are.
Here we go. Let's see.
You know,
Dallas, Texas, cheap $3.
Dallas isn't cheap. Oh, he's in Dallas, begging for $2 a mile. People just want to get the hell out of that area. Dallas is becoming the next Denver.
Is it really?
It's wild.
Gosh.
Like, I help a broker that moves a weird amount of freight out of Dallas, and he's always looking for carriers to move up to like Chicago and stuff. Man, that area is brutal.
Jeez.
It is brutal. Texas is terrible. If I was a carrier 411, I'd be looking for the best lawyers in America. They're going to need it. Yeah, I think it's going to get pretty ugly. I really do. Like I said, I don't wish well on anybody. I just think that there has to be a better process for how people are feeling.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
That's tough.
man, I tell you what. I did see something too this week for you carriers on Cheap Freight Hauler. This actually, I'm gonna throw this one out at you, man. I saw at the Broker Carrier Summit, some of the people were posting online. We did not get the chance to go this year, but some of the people were posting online that there is one spot for every 11 trucks to park at. So you cats that are on the road, you guys that are on the road, gals that are on the road, what's that look? I mean, that's a weird. You always see. Maybe it's just me. I'm the guy that sees those. Here's this country and their guy to girl ratio, right? And you're like, holy cow! If you lived in that country, like
I love where your mind goes.
And then I'm just sitting there going, okay, well, if there's that many friggin' trucks versus no spots, like, what do you do? You know what I mean? Like, this is a wild issue. And I know there's a couple companies trying to solve this, like kind of an Airbnb concept of parking. What's the name of that? I think it's called it's a yellow logo.
Yeah.
I've seen it before. It's like the trucking club or truck.
I think it's Park
Trucking Club or something like that. Good on them to try to make it happen. One malicious act could kill your business. Yeah, it's brutal. It really is brutal right now. And the other side of this too is that some of these vetting companies that are out there will really push you down. And unfortunately, you can't control it.
No.
I mean, if you buy a piece of equipment from somebody and that VIN is related to another company, it can really push you over the limit.
But that's when it comes back to, like, you just gotta ask better questions, right? You gotta know who you're working with, know their business as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just trying to help people ask better questions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's.
Quit assuming, ask.
You got to do something different. In fact, I'm reading a book right now, and I got to read this quote. I love this. It says, "If you've been doing the same thing for too long, don't be afraid to change it up. Test it, adjust it, and see what happens." I'm a big believer in just minor tweaks. And you just kind of, let's not sway the boat. We don't need to friggin' keep going back and forth. Let's just make minor tweaks, and that can be in anything in your life. That could be in the way and that could be anything. You know what I mean?
You're big, you could just be 10% off, and you're right. I think most of us don't think of it like. Okay, let me put it this way. I think the hardest thing is, okay, where am I going wrong with that 10%? That's the hardest thing, right? And then afraid to try something. Just being afraid to try something new.
Right.
Yeah. We're so used to doing this every day.
Yeah, you just get consistent.
Yeah.
It's so funny. What's going on with Georgia van loads? Load counts are worse than Florida. Yeah, that whole area is just odd how bad it is. It is. I mean, and the rates are nuts too. Like, I mean, he's begging for $2. Georgia's a weird area. There's no freight, and then all of a sudden it starts going for that $2 a mile thing. And you're like, how the hell am I supposed to keep my truck running down there?
Right.
You know what I mean?
You don't want to haul for something.
Hell no, you don't.
That doesn't make sense.
Why would you?
That's tough.
Why would you?
Gosh dang it.
So a couple things, and I'm glad DIY's on today, because I think this is an interesting thing that he said, and I love what he said about it. I think we met him about a year ago now, and he said, the beautiful thing during the pandemic was you could just go nuts with calling shippers because capacity was so tight, right? Everybody was making a fortune off load boards. I mean, this is why we got so bloated. parts of America, right? There were so many trucks that came in. We could almost call, like, when there was the great housing crash, right? You could almost kind of say the same thing. There was the great trucking crash that we're in right now. And you're starting to see this crazy stuff, right? The $2 a mile, Dallas is terrible, Georgia's horrible, right? But this is a shipper market. No matter how you look at it, it's a shipper market. They're making money, or not making money, but they're able to keep rates wildly low, and they just kind of can get away with it. Now, eventually, what happens is it turns over, and it becomes a broker and a carrier market, right? We just went through this kind of yo-yo effect, this cycle, right? And so right now, you kind of go, okay, well, what is it good for me? That's the question you need to be asking.
Yeah, you had some really good. We talked last night because we text all the time.
Yeah.
If we're not sending TikToks, we're talking.
Yeah, we do send TikToks.
But you had some really interesting tips that I think that everyone could kind of get a lot of value out of.
Yeah.
What can I be doing now?
Yeah.
I know it's a shipper market, but when it does flip, what should I be doing now in order when it does flip? What's that going to look like, and how can it benefit? Let's say if I had a trucking company.
Yeah.
What should I be doing?
Yeah.
Next 3 months.
I got to tell you, during the big C, can I say it?
Just say it.
What happens when it goes?
We'll see. We'll see if
Okay.
YouTube flags.
Well, that's fair. They'll either shut the site down or the other one. I don't know. So during COVID, we got shoved into our houses, right? It was like March. Some of you cats were still on the road, right? But in March, they just were like, hey, we're shutting schools down. You guys got to homeschool. And I'm like, sure. This is a great idea.
We're out of math.
I don't have enough attention span to be able to even talk to my children, let alone try to teach them. I'm like, what are we doing? So the local bar, and it was just a little watering hole. It's 4 blocks from our houses. Nate and I live, literally in the same neighborhood. And I thought it was interesting. They were trying to get rid of their kegs. They were like, well, we need to get rid of all our kegs, so it's $2 34-ounce draws. You bring your own cups. And so me and my neighbor, were like, this is brilliant. Well, we brought, this was stupid, by the way. Don't pour beer in styrofoam. Have you ever figured that out? They do like foams up. It's kind of a hot potato. But me and my neighbor would go every day after work, and we would answer the phone once that in. So we would go to the bar and we would start helping empty their kegs. In the meantime, though, you couldn't go into the bar because the bar owner was up on a ladder painting the roof or painting the ceiling and painting the walls. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm taking advantage of being closed. And to a certain extent, we're kind of closed. As a carrier, you're sitting here going, what the hell is going on? There's not a lot of freight. Chief Freight Hall is going, what the hell, what's going on with Georgia family, right? And so I think what's really important, first off, is to make sure while it's slow, you're getting a handle on your maintenance, right? I don't know if Tire Killer's on or not, but one of my things, this cat was shut down for 3-4 months this year, with, I think he had a tranny that went out.
Yeah.
It was like something crazy, like $20,000. And you have to keep going with those things, right? You have to keep up with your maintenance. And I'm not telling you anything new, but this is a good time to be doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people don't think of that. So how can we take advantage of these next 3 months and prepare for the best?
Exactly.
We just got to think positive and prepare.
Exactly.
So I'm going to let our guest in here. Samantha Jones, how are you? Great to have you back. How you been?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. We saw you at DACCON, so I'm excited to hear your Friday tip. I don't know if this could be related to DACCON and how that went, but we're excited.
Yeah, it's good to have you on.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost your mic. Can you hear us? Is this thing on?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound great. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. I had a podcast mic plugged in, but this isn't my usual setup, so probably not ideal for this. Okay. DACCON was great. I love DACCON. DACCON is not a huge conference, but it's very niche. So that's what I love about it. Is there's like a few hundred people there who are just like super smart people, honestly. Like you get a lot of like the data people, a lot of the people who want to understand markets, what's moving, what's going on. So it's really good for like listening and learning and getting a lot of insights from and where we're headed, how to like start forecasting for market cycles in your business. So I love that they do it in October, right? Because that's everybody's budget season. They're trying to figure out what the heck's going to go on next year. So it's really timely and I really enjoy that.
What were some key takeaways from it, if you don't mind, kind of enlightening the crowd? I saw your post, and I'm not going to go into it, but first off, you know what I love about the way you put out content is that you just share insights from where you're at. You're at conferences, you go around the country and do what you do, and you always share not only insights from a financial aspect of things, but you also share just like, hey, this quote was impactful to me. And I love that. So I really appreciate you doing that, because then it makes me feel like, I get a little bit of what they just went through, and I love that. So keep doing that. I'm just wanting to tell you.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And we've also been taking the podcast to more conferences. And so we have people like who are speaking at the conference, like jump on the podcast and share what they're talking about at the conference. So we feel like we're kind of like, for everybody who can't be there, we're giving them like at least a preview of what was going on. So that's been cool. Okay, so my primary takeaway, I think, from DATCon that I think people would find interesting is when they talked about where is the industry headed. So we're talking about like macroeconomics, but the industry for the freight market, right? They said that they think that this next market cycle, which we actually already started, so we are in like the uphill part of the new market cycle, even if it's like moving very slowly uphill. We're not in that like lowest point trough anymore. So we've initiated the next market cycle right now. And what people are thinking this is going to feel like is not like something we've experienced since like 2013, 2014. That's 10 years ago. So immediately my primary takeaway is like, I bet over 50% of the people in especially like third-party logistics right now weren't even here. I wasn't here 10 years ago. So we're all like, I don't know what that means. Like, what is this going to feel like? What they mean is this is going to be like a normal market cycle, because our last two market cycles, if you go back and look, and a market cycle is like the freight rates go up and then the freight rates come down, right? And so that rise and fall is considered a cycle. It usually takes 3 to 4 years. We experienced an ELD driven market cycle in 2019. And that was because of the ELD mandates. We lost a lot of capacity unexpectedly, and it created that big imbalance that was not like normal seasonality, wasn't natural. Our next one was pandemic driven. That was far from natural. Like that was even worse than ELDs. That was like the highest highs we've ever experienced in freight and the lowest low that we've ever experienced that quickly off of a high. So we are still just now coming out of that one, because if you think 2024, 2020, right, we're about 4 years out of that. So we had like 2 cycles pretty close together that were not really normal seasonally driven cycles. So now they're thinking, we're going to be back kind of in a normal seasonality. And we're kind of already seeing that. And I'll give you an example. We are approaching equilibrium in the marketplace, meaning capacity and supply and demand are pretty equal. So we've had a lot of carriers exiting. There's still some exiting, but more or less, we're kind of reaching like a stagnation of carriers exiting. So like just as many are coming in each month as are exiting, and we're kind of finding like that equilibrium point. And we know that because over the summer, when there's like when we had a road check week, rates did react. They reacted to that week, but they went right back to normal, which means like when there's an immediate like time-bound event, or like 4th of July weekend, or a 4-day week because of like a Labor Day or something like that, our rates kind of tightened and reacted because capacity is exiting, and just a little bit of exit during those holidays creates a little imbalance, which is what causes our rates to rise. But it goes right back to normal. And so that's like what seasonality does, where we know that we're kind of reached this like equilibrium in the marketplace now. Things are reacting as we would expect. I expect our small, like I say small, but like our normal peak season that we haven't seen in a long time this holiday season to do the same thing. We might see a little bit of rate pressure, but it's going to go back down in Q1 like it always did before. So that's my thoughts on where we're going. So I think we've finally found like a market that not a lot of people are going to be familiar with, because the highs won't be as high and the lows won't be as low, and it's going to be kind of boring. So I think we've been in like such a low that we're all like, oh, we're going to have this great recovery like soon. but there's nothing driving some great like dramatic recovery really soon. So barring any other unforeseen events like a war or a pandemic or something like that, we should kind of just see ourselves starting to react seasonally, meaning a little bit of a peak season here. We'll kind of feel things will cool in Q1, and then we might see some normal Q2, Q3 pressures in the busier season for freight. And we're going to overall just see like a slow and steady climb in rates, but I don't think we're going to get back to the highs we've experienced recently anytime soon, and hopefully we won't come back down into these low of lows for a while. So that was my main takeaway.
Yeah, the yo-yo effect is so hard to survive. You know, when you just keep going like this. I mean, it's so difficult as a business owner to kind of manage through. And yeah, you can kill it during those those up times, but the down times are brutal.
So for any of our like owner operators or even smaller fleets listening, something I really liked on that panel was they talked about when things were so good that people were making so much money, quite a large percentage of carriers chose to completely pay off their equipment loans. So they own their trailers, they own their tractors. So when you factor in not having payments on your equipment right now versus the people who waited till 22 to buy and got into the market, they said it's between like a 30 to 50 cent spread in like your cost to operate a truck right now. Meaning someone can operate for $1.50 a mile and make money, but someone else has to be at $2 to cover the bills. So that's what we're seeing.
I don't know if we lost Samantha here.
Right now, this becomes the survival of the second. There's quite a few of those people who can operate at that lower fixed cost, and they're going to be the ones that you're seeing like who are running the freight right now, and actually still you're like, how are people making money on these rates if you're on a high interest rate, maybe on an overvalued piece of equipment? You're not doing as well as someone who took advantage of that market and paid off their equipment and doesn't have those costs to operate right now. So they actually said, Dean Croak from DAT said it's one of the largest spreads we've ever seen in like carrier operating costs right now in the market.
Did they get into anything with what elections do as far as, are we seeing anything for the next few weeks versus what happens after elections, things like that? Is there anything that's historically gleaned from that side?
Sorry, I'm cracking up. Cheap freight hauler said this dummy bought a brand new truck in 22. Sorry, guy. I don't know if you can like refi at least on things, but there's also, they actually talked about that there's been a lot of cooling in like used auction sales, like and interestingly enough, I don't know exactly all the implications of this, but they said that trailer manufacturing, like their orders for 25 are already going to be down 25%. So like people aren't investing in equipment right now, which is also a sign of strain. Basically, like you're not trying to. There's a lot of okay. Another quick tangent, and I'll answer your question. He said the last road check week we had, I think it was like 27% of inspected vehicles were not fit to be on highway at all. Like they were like marked out of operation, should not be on the highway. So that's telling you that 27% of our on-highway capacity is saying, I don't have money for maintenance. And that's scary, right? So like that's also where we're sitting right now. So those people are going to be trickling out, I would imagine, if things don't get better for them. And that'll also continue to create a little bit of this imbalance and equilibrium that we have going on. Okay. Remind me your question. It was a good one, but then I got distracted. Election. Okay. They didn't cover the election at DATCon, but I actually covered the election. I got a little like political in a good way on my last newsletter. I do a monthly market update, and I had a whole section at the bottom of that on tariffs and taxes from both proposed candidates, and kind of how I see their overall, like from what they've shared at least to us about their policies, their economic policies, how that could potentially impact freight. So if you guys find me on LinkedIn, you can go see that most recent newsletter for October and give that a read. But the summary was they don't have a huge impact actually in freight. And if anything, what kind of happens leading up to election is everybody kind of just sit still. Like companies want to sit still, corporations want to sit still because they're waiting to see what are the new policies, how will it impact us, and then they figure out their direction forward. So it's kind of just a little bit of stagnation. You've also noticed typically fuel prices are pretty attractive before an election because it's never in the best interest of the government to have really high fuel prices right before they're trying to re-win their election. So we've seen diesel fuel prices kind of be controlled and come down some. So that's a positive benefit of just going into an election cycle. And then my proposed analysis was that if Trump wins, he has very favorable tax policies for corporate America. So he's actually going to lower business taxes, which usually just puts companies in a healthier position. So they could employ more, they can pay their people more. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to be putting more money in people's pockets by putting it in the business pockets. That's how it hopefully should go, right? And so healthier companies, healthier employment market is kind of how I see it. His tariffs are aggressive. They're kind of like unheard of. That's where he's planning on making up his funds. So his idea is like we charge corporations and individuals less and we charge other countries more to bring in goods. Does it get passed on to consumers? Yeah, quite often, but we're supposed to be making more money in theory, right? We're supposed to be paying less in taxes to the government and hopefully making more money from our paychecks because our companies are being taxed less. So if we have to take a 4% increase on cost of goods, that's kind of the logic in my opinion. Kamala Harris's proposed policies from what we've seen are a lot more restrictive on business, very aggressive on corporate tax policies. She does not really plan to implement new tariffs, but her plan is to get funding for all of her projects through corporate tax policies. We're talking things like grants of up to $10,000 and $20,000 to first-time home buyers and things like that. I mean, that's a lot of money we're pulling from somewhere, and it's coming from the companies employing those first-time home buyers. So I think it's like a very different approach there. Economically, from like a geopolitical trade standpoint, it has less impact because there's not tariffs. Domestically, there's a long-term projection that I highlighted in there that actually shows that it will hurt GDP in the long run more than the other proposed policy. I'm not getting political. I'm just evaluating the two tax sides here, and that's the reality. So Donald Trump also wants to focus on manufacturing, which is 60% or more of trucking ton miles. So the stronger our domestic manufacturing is, the stronger our trucking markets are. I don't really see that Kamala Harris has like anything against domestic manufacturing by any means. She's just not as targeted and focused on like trying to encourage it. She is, however, pretty focused on continuing like the green initiatives. So like EVs, solar, a lot of this that was actually, we already had policies created during this administration. And we have seen quite a bit of like freight movement in regards to these solar construction plants and all the semiconductor chips and things like that. We have a lot of infrastructure going on, especially in the South, like Texas and Arizona, and then over on the West Coast that's happening. Those plants don't produce a lot of trucking ton miles once they're built, but they take a lot to get built. So we've seen some of that happening.
Yeah, it would be kind of interesting. I know they just did that infrastructure bill where they passed, a couple $1 trillion. It'd be interesting to understand the impact that's had on bridge work and freight coming into cities around the country. You know what I mean? So I don't know how you'd find that out, but it's got to affect transportation with such a large bill. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, Tire Killer said that he's got a dry van sitting for 2 years. It's sucking money, but that just made me think. They also said at DATCON that another reason we know things for not everyone are not as bleak as people think is typically if you're struggling, you're just going to like run the wheels off your truck trying to continue to run and make money. But we are seeing a lot of people like electorally just choose to sit out when they feel like it. So like they don't like the rates, they go home for a week. And then they like come back on. They want to take a long holiday, they do it. So like we know that there are actually carriers in a better financial position right now who are still who put that away because they are saying, I am not doing this. Like I am not operating in this type of market. I would rather park and sit my butt at home than go run, 1,500 miles to lose money on it. So that's happening a lot more. And that's also kind of a sign like of where the market's at as far as capacity is, because we can see people kind of come and go as they please right now. And we're still staying pretty balanced. So no surprising supply spikes right now.
You mentioned in your post about some predictive, rate increases and things that carriers should start to see later in 2025. Can you kind of enlighten us a little bit on that as well, just for the sake of, what is the end of this, even if it's a slow uphill? What
Yeah.
what are we trying to get to with those rates?
I think a normal seasonal market, like what we're expecting, is will take Q1 will slow down a little bit. I think we're going to continue to lose some capacity in Q1 that's like not doing too great now, but we're close to equilibrium. So I don't know that we'll lose too many. I think if anything, it's not going to be that they can't find freight to haul. I think the people that are leaving is that they can't find, like I said, they're running at $2.10 a mile fixed rate. Their peers are running at $1.50.
Yeah.
Those are going to be the ones to go because they'll continue to run, freight at $1.80, $90 a mile this winter and be just fine, making good money, and their peers are going to be losing every time. So we're going to shed the rest of that capacity, I think. And then usually spring just kind of sees things pick up a little bit more. And then summer is always busy season for freight. It's when all the food, beverages are really, moving. That's a big part of our domestic manufacturing and our economy. Then we have back to school, which always gets busy in July, August, and that leads into peak for holidays and seasonal events. So I think we'll just see rates kind of steadily increase Q2 through Q3. Q4 would be my hope next year. But again, I don't know like how dramatic we're talking. And then also remember that contract rates lag spot. So we'll see spot move first, and then we'll see lag in contract. So spot has to go above contract before contract starts to shift, and we might not reach that point until later 25. So contract rates, we might be talking like pressure, but not like a lot of movement until end of 25 into continuing into the early 2026 negotiations, I think, for RFPs.
That's incredible.
Yeah, Samantha, I seriously can't thank you enough. You bring a lot of value. There's a lot of things I don't think about that you bring up. And I'm like, oh crap, like I should be thinking about this. And it's really helpful because we talk with a lot of carriers, and this is good stuff that we can relay through our one-on-one meetings and stuff like that. So I really thank you for putting all that stuff out there for everyone.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Obviously, we get to see you after the election, so we'll get to see what your thoughts are on that.
See what's going on. That'll be an interesting time. I think I have a feeling our election is not the end of things. We're going to get some answers in November that are then going to be contested in January. Either way it goes. So I think we are going to have an interesting end of year politically to see what happens and what's going on before everyone can kind of figure out the direction we want to move. So I think we're all kind of operating right now under the assumption that the election's the election. We know who we're doing. We move forward, and that's been a lot of the commentary. I'm a little bit pessimistic that we can be that idealistic right now. So if something is to be contested, then I think it introduces a lot more uncertainty into our economy for the next year. And I think that would be an interesting conversation to have too. So thank you guys for having me. I do love sharing information. I'm in my little corner of the world here with macroeconomics and freight markets. And you guys can find me on LinkedIn if you're interested in reading or hearing more about it.
And what's the name of your website as well, just so people have a way of looking you up?
Yeah, so aside from everything we really talked about today, I own a consulting company for sales and brand strategies. It's not too far aside. By helping, by really understanding where the market's at and where we're going, we're able to help people customize their sales outreaches and their messaging to the people buying services right now. And so that's what we do. But I'm www.connectsjc.com. You guys can find me there, or like I said, on LinkedIn at Samantha Jones.
Yeah, follow her content, guys. I mean, incredible, just incredible content. Keep you up to date with the latest trends. She also puts out a newsletter, which I'm sure takes her friggin' countless hours. Follow her.
Real quick, Cheap Freight Hauler said, is she on YouTube? Please go follow me on YouTube. I have like 4 followers on YouTube, but all of my shows are there. So all of my live shows stream to LinkedIn. We get a couple thousand listeners, and I get like 4 on YouTube. But I'm on YouTube at Meet Me for Coffee. That's the name of our Freight Market Economic podcast. So if you find me, it's at Meet Me for Coffee with Samantha Jones on YouTube, and all of my past podcasts are on YouTube.
Yeah,
perfect.
I love it.
Thanks again,
Samantha.
Hi, guys. Thank you.
Yes, please do give her a follower.
She just brings a house.
Definitely, man. It's good stuff to really kind of dive into. And like I said, I was really being a good listener today because But a lot of stuff she threw out there, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think of it or look at it that way. And I love how you brought the election part too, because not a lot of people think about how the election.
Yeah.
They should be thinking about the election because it could affect your business, obviously. But,
Right.
But it's how deep is it, how we're going to go, and how deep can this really affect me personally as a business owner.
Absolutely.
So she brings a lot of good value to the table, and especially for the small business owners, you got to be looking into that and preparing.
When there was the first chop of the up and down rate that we saw, there was so much. I don't know anyone that's watching, but the people that were trying to buy used equipment was going for such a high friggin' rate. It was just insane.
Right.
Money's not as far as to go out and get a loan. Obviously, it was a lot cheaper money than it is now, right? So hopefully we see feds continue to cut a little bit there. I think that's just a scapegoat for what is happening behind the scenes.
Sometimes I think the same way.
You and me both.
What are we missing here?
You and me both.
I know, let's see, Freightmaster Resource and run through. So you're talking about renting out your equipment, Tire Killer's equipment through is this a program?
Renting out through co-op. This is an interesting, and I think this is what he's talking about. There's cooperatives everywhere. They take, they're usually agriculturally based cooperatives, and sometimes they'll have a, hey, we need more equipment,
Gotcha.
And so we could use your van trailer, and here's what we're going to use it for, and here's what we'll pay you per mile.
Is that still on your insurance, or would that go into theirs?
That's a great question. That's a wonderful question. Normally speaking, you would maintain the insurance.
Okay.
However, there'd be a trailer interchange concept that'd be in place, and kind of a power only concept.
Okay.
So
it's through Ryder.
Co-op is through Ryder. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's that as well. So
okay. Tire Killer, if that's something you'd be interested in, I'd love to hook you up with Tim or Freightmaster Resource there. You guys can check that out.
Yeah, there's always somebody that needs something. It just sucks because you just bought the damn thing for, X, Y. You just bought it for 40, and then now you can only get it for friggin' 20.
You can set your rental rate. Okay.
See, try it. That'd be kind of cool. But there's always people looking for equipment. It's just a matter of you want to put it out there for that. Putting out some fires, checking in late. George, what is up, brother? We've heard a lot of fires. How many fires have we seen this week? Like, people are just on a hot potato.
6 yesterday.
Yeah. People are just a hot potato.
People missing deliveries, pickups, things like that.
It's just nonstop.
Freight brokers not relaying proper information. It seems to be a communication problem. When I hear it at the end of the day, it's just like, whether it's the freight broker or carrier, I think communication on both ends needs to get better. Because then we're not having to put out fires.
Totally agree. And there's got to be an easier way to communicate through all that, through all the layers. You know what I mean? Because in some particular cases, you're a driver, you just backed in, takes you an hour and a half to get loaded. Oh, they don't get your paperwork for 2 hours. At what point does the carrier actually call his broker? Then the broker calls the shipper then calls the warehouse. You see where I'm going. There's a lot of layers, and so trying to get through those layers is going to always add friction to communication. You know what I mean? It's always going to add. The market isn't there to justify the risk. Yeah, I get that too. Totally get that too.
Yeah.
But you're on a contract with your step deck. It would be interesting. Do you need the van? Maybe it frees up cash, right? T. Harris, what's up, bro?
Did you see his comment earlier about how? Let's see, what did he say? Oh gosh, where'd it go? Something about if you were trying to give the van back, but you had to give out both. So it's both or none.
He's got him tied up into one aspect. Yeah. Well, that'll happen. It's so interesting how the loan cycle, it can, if you're paying higher, rates for that used equipment versus buying new, do you just buy new? The guy that I used to work for, the current owner of Nebraska Transport, he always liked to buy new because then you have all the warranty, right?
Okay.
Then you hear the other side of it, just buy used and then just work through it, and either which way.
I just hate how the equipment's sitting there just sucking money. That just sucks, man. Guys, I'm a dispatcher. Want to get some carriers. Need some sauce that I can get ahead for the rest.
That's fair.
Yeah, we love sauce here. So
Yeah, it's
big
Friday.
sauce guys.
It's a Friday. Being a dispatcher is a tough gig. You know what I mean?
It
Like
is.
you've got to provide value.
And you're in a room full of carriers right
You are in a room full of carriers, and they will either give it to you hard or they'll let you know what it thinks. But I think what he's talking about here is how does he provide value?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's something that we could talk about on another show. We actually have some shows that show, dispatchers doing calls to carriers, things like that. But you've got to be a little bit different, and you got to add some value. And so I think if you're a dispatcher, keep your head down, keep looking for ways to build value, build relationships, and just kind of keep carriers at the first and foremost. You know what I mean? It's not about you. It's about how you help them with their business and how you streamline their business and all those layers of communication to help them, make sure you're getting paid more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know we're talking carriers today, but here we go. Let's see what Chief Feller said.
I've used always seem to spend the same on repairs as the payment on the new truck. Yeah. It kind of hits or miss. I would challenge the chief freight hauler. He said something earlier. He's like, I need to get more specialized. If you haven't taken your hazmat and getting it done, just go get it. Get your tanker endorsement, get your hazmat, and just go get it. And just get it done. The kickers they purchased a year and a half ago apart, but it was still considered shared collateral. Yeah. That sucks. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, let's move on.
That's real quick. We'll be quick because we're 41 minutes in. I do want to at least give you some ideas real quick to end this year. Okay. Number one, if it's slow, take the time to get maintenance done. Okay. Big believer in this. I do think though, right now, DIY. I was saying this earlier. DIY said the pandemic was incredible to call shippers. You could just walk right in the door. You could call through that phone and you get a shipper every time because they needed capacity. That same thing is true right now. It's a shipper market, but it's also a heavy carrier market. If you're a carrier, you can talk to a lot more shippers than you think you can. I promise you that. And for some of the guys that are, I appreciate that.
Thank you, McBride.
For this, for some of those carriers that are like, well, I'm not big enough to handle that. Kind of boast your chest a little bit and just say, hey, here's what I do. I'm there every Thursday. Here's how I handle my other customers that are like you, and keep moving on. So make sure you're building those shipper relationships and getting those conversations started now because it'll take a little time. Okay. Here's the next thing I would do. And DIY was on a couple weeks ago, and he said something so interesting. He goes, watch your broker credits, right?
Yes.
And what I would do personally is I would start talking to brokers that are in your area, but I would be wildly picky and start to understand how to say no. And this goes the same with shippers. If you get on with the shipper, make sure you're understanding, hey, I can't run it for this, justify your cost. Start to focus on how you communicate and negotiate with shippers and brokers.
Right.
If you're in the spot market, you got to be asking for 50 extra bucks a month or load or whatever it may be. Constantly be asking for more. The other thing that I really want to express as we're trying to rush through this a little bit here is optimize your pricing right now with your clients for 2025. And what I mean by that is go justify your costs and get a general rate increase. Okay. And I've always been a big believer. Here's where I always got in trouble as a broker was when I sold oranges and quoted apples. And what I mean by that is I would give a flat market rate, but then I'd buy the truck at a per ton rate. It always hosed me. DDG doesn't weigh anything. You can only put 22 tons in there. And I ended up not getting paid a proper amount, and it always hosed me, right? What I believe the carriers need to be doing is making sure that you're implementing fuel surcharges. So as those rates go up and down, you get compensated. Right now, we're seeing that little bit of a swing down with fuel. But as fuel goes back up, you want to make sure you're getting compensated. And so making sure that your oranges and oranges, as you talk to your carriers or your shippers or your brokers and get a general rate increase, if you have the ability, implement a fuel surcharge. So huge. That's a big thing. And and just continue to leverage technology. And what I mean by that is there are ways for you to stay productive, that you can stay safe and still be constantly be reminded. Now I'll give you some examples, okay? If you're not using voice technology to remind you to do things, just look it up tonight and get it done. Because here's what happens. I'll tell you something that happened at my house. Is we started using Alexa for our grocery list. I know you think that sounds silly, but as I'm cooking, I can yell it. Well, it's not yelling. I'm not yelling at her, but I speak loudly and I tell her what I need. Okay. And my wife sees that it's on my list and we can start to play this game. Do the exact same thing with your phone. Do the exact same thing with the apps, the computers. Just get some voice out there and just friggin' make sure that you are utilizing something to keep you on task. Cheap freight hauler, getting the certificate and insurance for the company, that's the hard part. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing because that's what's going to take you from this level of rate to this level of rate. And I'd rather next year when you put 1 million miles on that truck that you got paid 15, 20, 30 cents more because you're a hazmat tanker versus what you did this year. Now I know there's more risk and there's other things that are involved, but just keep grinding. I know that the insurance and all that stuff is hard. I get that, but you got to keep pushing.
I was thinking the same thing too. I have my tanker bound, not hazmat. I didn't know how much it would cost for insurance. If it was worth it on the load board.
It definitely worth it. Are you going to haul some loads that aren't hazmat? Sure, but when you do grab that load that's paying a little bit more because you're the only cat that's got tanker and hazmat, you're fine. Getting quick on those load boards, making sure you're setting those notifications so it tells you when those loads post. Boy, that's an important side of things so that you can kind of be first in line or at least get your hand up and say, hey, I can do it, but I'm going to need this. Right? So, there are a bunch of dogs in this chat. Starts the guys on.
I appreciate
I appreciate that too. I love it.
Really quick though, I do want to plug eCarrierCheck.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that we were built just for freight brokers. We're really built for the carriers as well. Yeah. We understand if you live in an area that you're unsure of, who's near me, right? For brokers, you can start looking for local brokers in your area to just kind of pop in and shake some hands.
Yeah.
Grow some relationships. We want to help you guys do it all. We have a really good carrier group here. So if any of you guys are interested in just meeting with us, we'd love to shoot you some brokers over for you just to pick up and call. Yeah. No charge. We want to help you.
Even too, the other thing that would be interesting, Chief Freight Hauler, I would love to sit down with you one-on-one and show you hazmat carriers and who their friggin' clients are. We can tell you that. We can show you, hey, these guys are working with these. We would give you pinpointed cold call conversations where you can say, hey, I'm a hazmat tanker guy out of Florida that would love an opportunity to haul from Simi Freight. So no reason to write things down or have a light to remind you. You'll remember it at 2 a.m. That's my issue. This is why I want you to sleep better, damn it. I'm not talking about AI. I'm just talking about making sure you're recording yourself, making sure that you're I can't remember a damn thing. My mind is it's just a friggin' disaster. And I'll walk into a room and not know what the hell I'm doing here, let alone drive somewhere. Hell, I drove somewhere I didn't know what I was doing. So this just helps continue to make sure that you're staying on track and do what you got to do. Nate, today's been fun. Samantha was incredible. She always has good content. I always want to see our audience win, and I want to see them be successful. And if there's anything that we can do for you guys, whether it's help you with our software, help you with some, we don't even consult. We just want to make sure that we friggin' help you win the day. So go win today, go win tomorrow, and be successful.
Have a good weekend too.